In the expansive realm of dark Sunset Manor, we have a vampire, we have a werewolf, we have their victims, we have a number of melodramas, one of which is playing out even as we speak. Front desk attendant Andrew Houseman is arriving at the home of Chris Jennings, and Chris Jennings is in his basement planning to put an end to his brother's life. And as Craig Jennings lies resting during the day, Chris Jennings is arming himself with a stake and a mallet. And upstairs, as Aunt Hilda Schroeder is agonizing over what's happening in the basement, Andrew Houseman comes barging in. And in Nurse Nellie Vauban's studio apartment. So, Cindy Sue, what did you see Chris doing in his yard? I watched Chris turn into a wolf. Oh my gosh, Cindy Sue, I saw a wolf too. That settles it then. Nurse Nellie, I'm going to call the police. And it is late morning at Dark Sunset Manor, where Executive Director Irving Pennywise is welcoming a new resident and her daughter. The new resident is Narcissa Glass, and her daughter is Louise Smythe. Then Louise steps forward and makes a request of Irving Pennywise. Mr. Pennywise, I need to talk to you in private about my mother. My daughter wants to warn you about not letting me look into any mirrors. And Irving Pennywise doesn't know what to make of that interesting information. And believe it or not, in his quest to visit his grandmother, Octavia Merriweather, Malcolm Merriweather has finally arrived at her residence in the memory care section of Dark Sunset Manor. Grandmother, I am so glad I was finally able to get here. Have I got some interesting things to tell you? I found a secret passage. 2, actually. I also found a hidden room and a ghost. Oh my, that's terrible. And even worse, I found a vampire. A vampire, Grandmother? Are you sure? I am absolutely sure. Did you know who he was? Did you recognize him? Yes, it was a man named Craig Jennings. And back at Chris Jennings' house, where Craig Jennings is imperiled by his very own twin brother, and Andrew Houseman descends the steps to the basement, intent on protecting Craig Jennings. Chris Jennings, stop where you are. I have a gun, and I will use it. Ron McCoy here in the guise of Rob McCool, proprietor of dark Sunset Manor, and even though you can see and hear me, none of the residents can, and we have Andrew Houseman, who is the protector of Craig Jennings, who is now his master because Craig Jennings has put the bite on him. He is wielding a pistol, aiming it at Chris Jennings. We know that Chris Jennings is the man who is transformed into a werewolf by a full moon. According to legend, werewolves can only be killed with weapons containing silver bullets, but does that apply to a werewolf in human form? I mean it, Chris. Put down that stake, put down that mallet. Reluctantly, Chris Jennings puts down the mallet and puts down the stake, and the two men ascend the stairs to the main level of Chris Jennings' house, the gun still pointed at Chris Jennings. Unbeknownst to them, however, Cindy Sue has called the police, and they have arrived. Meanwhile, in his office at Dark Sunset Manor, Irving Pennywise welcomes a new resident and her daughter. So, Mrs. Glass, let me understand this. You're not supposed to look into any mirrors? My mother is absolutely right, Mr. Pennywise. No mirrors for her. Well, that seems a little odd, Miss Smythe. Why is it that your mother can't look into mirrors? I can explain. I have a friend, Mr. Pennywise. Her name is Persephone. She lives in my mirror, and she does terrible things. What kinds of terrible things, Mrs. Glass? For one, she steals from me. Oh, Mrs. Glass, I see. Anyway, your residence is ready. Let's go on down and take a look at it again, and then we can get started moving your things in. And in the memory care section of Dark Sunset Manor, in Octavia Merriweather's residence, her grandson Malcolm Merriweather has heard shocking news from his grandmother. She claims she's seen a vampire, and that the vampire's name is Craig Jennings. So, grandmother, who exactly is Craig Jennings? Craig Jennings is Chris Jennings' twin brother. Who is Chris Jennings? Chris Jennings works at Dark Sunset Manor. I believe his role is attendant. He checks in on the residents. So, Chris Jennings works at Dark Sunset Manor. This is new information, provided Octavia Merriweather has her story straight. So, grandmother, providing you have your story straight, we need to report this to the executive director, Irving Pennywise. No, Malcolm. If you report Craig Jennings and he finds out about it, he might come back to get me. Okay, grandmother, don't get upset. I've just come up with another idea. And 2 doors down from Octavia Merriweather's residence, Narcissa Glass is moving into her new residence with the help of her daughter and Irving Pennywise. And Irving Pennywise has assured Louise Smythe, who is Narcissa Glass's daughter, that there are no mirrors in Narcissa's new residence. So, Mrs. Glass, I have made sure that all mirrors have been removed from this residence. And yes, Irving Pennywise did check this residence for mirrors, but he forgot to check on the back of the door in this little closet. Meanwhile, at the studio apartment of Nurse Nellie Vauban, Nurse Nellie is on the phone with Cindy Sue, who has already stated that she has reported Chris Jennings because she believes he's turned into a wolf. Yes, Nellie, I just called the police about Chris and told them where he lives. Oh, okay, Cindy Sue. Thank you. However, after hanging up with Cindy Sue, Nurse Nellie Vauban is having second thoughts about having the police called in for Chris Jennings. And a few minutes later, Nurse Nellie is arriving outside the ramshackle home of Chris Jennings, who, at that moment, is being followed upstairs by Andrew Houseman, who has a gun pointed at him. Stop! Stop! Right where you are! I am an officer of the law, and I command you to stop! This is Officer Matthew Starr. He has arrived because of Cindy Sue's call, but he's not alone. Officer Wyatt Earp, Matthew Starr's mentor, is also there. Which one of you two is Chris Jennings? Officer Earp, I am Chris Jennings. This man, Andrew Houseman, has a gun pointed at my back. Mr. Houseman, put the gun down. So, yes, I am Chris Jennings, and I want to tell you about something very strange that's in my basement. It is time to reflect on tonight's episode. Please click like, subscribe, and click on the bell so that you know every time I upload a new video. And now it's time to get back to the dark side of Rob McCool. So, yes, Officer Earp, there is something very strange in my basement. It's Mr. Jennings. You have the right to remain silent. In other words, say nothing more. Anything you say could be used against you in a court of law. And Chris Jennings stops talking, which makes Andrew Houseman very happy. And you may recall that Malcolm Merriweather had gone to visit his grandmother, Octavia Merriweather. Grandmother, a vampire named Craig Jennings, menaced you in the cellar of Dark Sunset Manor. That is totally unacceptable. It is, but I was rescued by a woman named Hilda Schroeder. Yes, but like you said before, we want to make sure Craig Jennings doesn't come back to get you. And I've been thinking, and like I said before, I think I have a plan that involves the capture of Craig Jennings. And before you can say Octavia Merriweather, Malcolm Merriweather is on his way. And moments after Malcolm Merriweather leaves her residence, Octavia Merriweather receives an unwelcome guest. And in her residence, Narcissa Glass has been left alone while her daughter and Irving Pennywise go back to Mr. Pennywise's office to sign some papers. So while I'm alone, I think I will explore my new residence. Let's see, I think I'll start with that closet over there. I need a place to hang my vast collection of clothes from the 1980s. And as she opens the door to this apparent closet, she is aghast to see that there is a mirror on the inside of the door. And seeing herself in the mirror, Narcissa Glass exclaims, "Persephone, I'm so glad to see you." And her reflection responds with, "And I'm extremely glad to see you."